Google's Pixel 5 smartphone is still a couple days away from being released to the market, but there's already a whole lot of hype around this device, and most of it is for good reason. If you're already familiar with Google's Pixel lineup, you probably already know that they capture some of the best pictures you can ever get out of a smartphone, thanks to the computational photography algorithms that are built into the camera's software. And in 2020, things are getting even better now that Google's added an ultra-wide camera to the back of the phone. On top of that, Google's also addressed the issue of battery life with the Pixel 5, since last year's Pixel 4 was really disappointing when compared to the competition. That being said, the Pixel 5 is far from perfect. And if you are considering buying this phone, today we're going to be talking about some of the issues that you should consider before doing so. That's right, today we're talking about 5 reasons why you should consider not buying the Pixel 5. That being said, no one's going to be taking issue with all 5 of these points that I'm going to be making, but there are at least 1 or 2 of them that are going to resonate with most of you. So with that, let's get to it. The biggest complaint that I've seen from most people so far about the Pixel 5 is that it's running on a Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G chipset, rather than the 865 chipset that we've seen in flagship tier devices this year. Now, if you're familiar with the OnePlus Nord or even the LG Velvet, you'll know that the chipset inside of those phones is more than capable of keeping up with day-to-day tasks and even is a great chipset for gaming. But when compared to the Snapdragon 865, it is quite a bit inferior, with only roughly 65 to 70% of the processing power and the graphic rendering power that that flagship chipset has to offer. If you want to put it into perspective, it's roughly on par with the Snapdragon 845 from 2 years ago. The decision to go with the Snapdragon 765G chipset inside of the Pixel 5 was mainly to keep the price of the phone lower than it was last year, because Google got a lot of complaints about the Pixel 4 and the 4 XL being overpriced when compared to the competition for the specifications that it had to offer. That being said, the chipset inside of this phone is still extremely capable, even if you're into mobile gaming. It's not going to be able to max out frame rates and graphics quality on games like PUBG or Call of Duty Mobile, but it can still play those games extremely well. And if you're only playing casual games or simply browsing the web or using your device to catch up on social media, the performance of this device is going to be exactly what you need. The second item on the list is the phone's display. What you're looking at here is a 6-inch OLED panel with a 90 Hz refresh rate, Full HD Plus resolution, and HDR10 support. Now, if you're simply looking at the spec sheet, those numbers don't actually look too bad. But when you start comparing it to what the competition has to offer, the Pixel 5 looks to be a little bit disappointing, considering most other devices have at least a 6.2 to a 6.8 inch display. Compared to that, the Pixel 5 looks and feels pretty small. And then for the screen resolution, there's a lot of devices within the price category that have Quad HD Plus resolutions and also the 90 Hz refresh rate. You can find that all the way up to 120 for this same price point as well. Anyone who's owned a Pixel smartphone in the past knows how good the stereo speakers on Pixel devices can be. Unfortunately, the Pixel 5 takes a step back in that respect. You do get stereo speakers here. Unfortunately though, the placement of those is a little bit different, with one at the bottom of the phone and then the other one hidden behind the display here. Needless to say, the audio quality that you're going to get out of this device isn't as good as what you got on the Pixel 4 last year or even the Pixel 4a 5G that just came out alongside of this device. Of course, on top of that, there's still no 3.5mm headphone jack, so if you want a wired audio connection, you're not going to find it here. The fourth reason that might keep you from buying the Pixel 5 is that this phone here only supports 18-watt fast charging. You've probably already heard me say this a couple of times already, but in my book, 18 watts is not considered fast charging these days, since that's the slowest that I've ever had on a smartphone in 2020. That's pretty much regular charging at this point. If you want to call something fast charging, you need to take it all the way up to at least 25 watts. But other manufacturers have gone to 45 and even 65 watt fast charging, allowing you to fully charge a smartphone in less than 45 minutes. And the fact that this phone here has a larger battery at just over 4,000 milliamps, it's going to take you a lot longer to charge this than it did previous Pixel devices. Now, of course, Google does get credit for increasing the battery capacity of this device so that it can last you a full day and maybe even then some, depending on your usage conditions. But also you get wireless charging and reverse wireless charging for the first time in a Pixel device. And they managed to do that even though this phone has a metal frame underneath this poly resin finish on the back of the device. And that brings me to the fifth and final reason as to why you shouldn't buy the Pixel 5. And that is the phone's price at $700 US. Now, when compared to some flagship tier devices that cost between $900 and $1,300, the Pixel 5 can seem like a real steal. But the mid-range segment has gotten extremely competitive this year, even with Google's own Pixel 4a 5G, which costs $200 less than this phone, even though it has pretty much the exact same specs. And then there's phones like this, the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. This one here is simply a dumbed down version of the Galaxy S20 that launched earlier this year with the same exact chipset on the inside and also a much larger display than the Pixel 5, and the refresh rate here goes all the way up to 120 Hertz. And then of course on the back, you have a triple camera system here as opposed to the dual camera system on the Pixel 5. All three of these are 12 megapixel sensors for their standard, ultra wide, and also a 3x zoom. And honestly, it takes some really good pictures. So that's going to do it for my top 5 reasons as to why you shouldn't buy the Pixel 5 here in 2020. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my take on this device. If you want to see our full review of the Pixel 5, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon as well. We also have additional coverage of this device coming up with quite a few camera comparisons, so make sure you stay tuned for those. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.